Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Dory Adams. So Dory, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Hey, Dan, great to meet you. And thank you for having me on the podcast. I am actually located in Toronto, Canada. And so I own a tech platform that is called Shutterbee, which essentially is a gig platform for smartphone content creators. So my background is in advertising. I worked in advertising for 16 years. And I just left in March of 2023 to launch this. And essentially what we do is we bring event hosts and businesses a really affordable solution to get content sort of all the time.
Amazing. So what gave you the idea to start this business?
So initially I started the business. So it's funny. I think being a founder and a business owner, you do figure out quite quickly that your business is going to guide you to what it needs to be. And so what initially had inspired the business was that we wanted to give people a solution that would allow them to put down their phones at events and be more present while still getting the content that they need. And so it actually started for me at a concert. I was like at a Dave Matthews Band concert. I saw a friend and his dad having this like epic moment together. And I thought someone needs to capture it and get it to them after. And so the idea just sparked from there. And so, yeah, we launched in September 2023. Again, very much thinking we would be for consumers. So like birthday parties, milestone events, etc. And as soon as we launched, it was businesses that started coming to us, like small business owners, trade shows, conferences, because they truly have that need for content all the time to fuel their social channels. And so while we still do consumer events, we definitely have pivoted, very quickly in our first few months of launch and have focused on really helping to support small business owners and businesses with their content.
Amazing. So obviously small business vertical was huge. There's, I know in the US, we have tens of millions of small businesses. Is there a certain vertical that you kind of focus more on within small business? Or I guess like, who would you say, or, who have you seen so far as kind of an ideal client or customer for you?
Yeah, I'm just laughing because we literally this morning were just pitching with some VCs and they asked us this very specific question. So, and it's hard for me because when people ask me who's our audience for Shutterbee, and as somebody who has a very big background in marketing and advertising, I hate saying this, but it really is everyone because everyone needs content. However, if I really need to boil it down to who I've seen as the clients that are sort of our most returning clients, I've definitely seen a huge boost in the female entrepreneur world, whether that is women who are running networking events, women who are in the sort of wellness space, like mindset coaches and breath work and instructors, musicians. So I would say we've definitely, if I had to guess, I would say about 80% of our clients are within that female entrepreneur world. Not to say that we only work with females, but it's definitely been, I think, as a female founder, I think we really do understand the importance of content and showing up authentically through our channels. And so, yeah, I would say that's kind of the most reoccurring clients that we get.
Amazing. So in terms of how you actually gotten those clients and those customers, what have you done so far? Have you gone to networking events and then cold outreach on LinkedIn, running ads? How have you kind of gotten, the first few signups here?
So we have done everything organically so far. We, in ending our first year, did over 500 events. And by the end of December, which was just a few months later, we had 670 bookings. And the way that we did this was hustle and networking. We just, we're poor founders, so we don't really have money to put into paid media right now. We're raising, so hopefully the next time we talk, Dan, this will be a different story. But we really just have really hustled our way through networking. So I have attended tons of networking events. The best is when we can also sell Shutterbee to capture the event, because then when I'm there in the audience, it's kind of this nice 1-2 punch of I'm here, the founder, this is what I do. You can can see it in action. We've also done a few trade shows that have made sense for us. Like we've done the baby show, we've done Canada's bridal show, we've done a bunch of like event planner specific conferences. And I think like one piece of advice I got when I first started out was just this notion of being curious and ask. So I just also am like very in tune of like what events are going on. If someone mentions they're going to an event, I'll like look it up, I'll find the event planner and just reach out and just connect. And then I think also putting myself out there as a bit of a voice of authority in the content space. So offering to do like, keynote speaking opportunities, being on podcasts like this. LinkedIn has been a huge one. So just really putting yourself out there.
For sure. So in terms of, events, obviously you have networking events, you have business events, and that's kind of your focus is this B2B channel. Are you kind of, have you done other sorts of private events? You could say even like weddings or birthday parties, things like that.
Yeah, we're great for that. So we've done it all. We've done birthday parties, we've done micro weddings, baby showers, bridal showers. It's a perfect solution for those milestone events where you maybe wouldn't have the budget for the professional photographer or videographer, right? For your wedding, obviously, if you can afford it, you're going to aim, and we would never say not to have the professional photographer. Where we can play a part on your wedding day is being a bit more of that behind the scenes and giving you the content that you want for social. And we also deliver really quickly. So while a photographer may step away and need to take 3 to 6 months to get you your retouched photography that is art, we will get you everything within 24 hours or next day or same day, depending on the time. So as a bride or a groom, you can imagine waking up the next day after your wedding, like you just want to see all the pictures. So where Shutterbee can play a role is giving you that next day delight and then giving you the content that you can start to circulate while you wait for your professionals.
For sure. So obviously now we're here in 2025, as you mentioned, that you're looking to raise, but is part of it also expanding outside of Toronto? Like what is your vision for Shutterbee in 25?
Yeah. So for us, what we did in our first year was we really proved the business model. We proved the market fit, and we have a really wonderful organic growth story. But because we are such an affordably priced product and we have a pretty low margin, we only win with scale. So 2025 is the beginning of scale for us and our main focus. So right now we are starting our first tech accelerator in a couple of weeks. And the goal is basically we have a really strong MVP today, but we want to build it out as an app that's going to prepare us to scale. And then ideally by the end of the year or beginning of Q4, we want to be in at least one new market.
Okay. So in terms of new market, I mean, are you looking to keep that within Canada for now, or is that maybe in the US? Like, do you have some markets in mind that you're looking at?
Yeah, my dream would be to launch in a US market. So somebody just took me to LA as their Shutterbee recently. And I was sort of picturing what it could be like there. I think Miami would be another potential. I'm probably going to New York in a couple weeks. I think Chicago, your original. And you know what? A lot of people have mentioned Austin as a potential great market for us. So I think definitely I'd love sooner than later to get us into the States and see how it all goes there.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll go great. I mean, it's a great idea and a great concept. And yeah, I mean, it can make sense. I think it's a lot of the times, it's like how many people can you actually reach? And Toronto is obviously like the largest metro in Canada. But, if you want to scale outside of Canada, it might make sense. And especially the US is really not that far away. So.
Exactly. And I think like it would come probably with more challenges in a good way. Like I love a good challenge, but it probably would come with more challenges to launch in the US than maybe in another Canadian city, just because it's a bit more of that unknown for us. And so I'd rather get that out of the gate and get the learning so that when we're ready to scale at mass in more markets in Canada and more markets in the States, we're using sort of our test and learn approach as we always take this year when we scale into our new market.
For sure. So when you are, hiring or like working with Shutterbees, I mean, obviously I'm assuming you're probably not at every single event, right? So how do you make sure that like the person there is doing a good job?
So we have a platform within our community called Shutterbee Labs, which is a coaching community for our Shutterbees. So we provide them all of the coaching on how to be a great content creator. This is where my background in advertising really comes through to help them understand how to work with brands, how to work with clients, how to prepare for a content day by creating that shot list, all of that great stuff. So we have an actual like video module platform of training that they like have to complete when they are onboarded. We are constantly updating that. And then we have a Facebook group that's open actually to anyone who is interested in being a content creator. I haven't been the best at fueling it recently, but it is in the plans for this year to get it picked back up. And then as well, one of my co-founders, so him and I worked in advertising forever. He's my chief technology officer. He's a VP of tech and advertising, but he actually also owned his own cinematography business for weddings for 15 years. So him and I bring a really good collaboration when it comes to how we coach the Shutterbees. And then I actually work as a Shutterbee, so I can learn, right? Like, it's also a nice side gig for me to make a little bit of money while I'm taking on that poor founder life. But on top of it, it helps me to be in field and see what's going on, what's working, what's not working, and then inject that back into our coaching.
For sure. So, I mean, I obviously coaching is important, but like, in terms of like maintaining that quality, do you have certain filters in place? I mean, I'm assuming not anyone can just sign up and become a Shutterbee. So what does that look like?
So in terms of, so we do not have certain like, do you mean filters by like filters we provide to them to put on the content, or filtering them to?
Yeah, filtering to make sure it's the right, person. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think this has been the biggest challenge so far of just getting to the right recruitment process. What we do right now is you essentially fill out an application, you give us a few pieces of content. We've got some really pointed questions, and then there's like an interview round in a group setting to see how people kind of thrive from a personality perspective in that environment. And then we kind of put some caution into the wind and hope that it's going to work out with our coaching. We also do a criminal background check on all of our Shutterbees as well, just to make sure that like no one sketchy is coming on the platform. I would say one thing that we are likely going to evolve this year, and especially as we start to scale, is probably asking recruits to do a bit of spec work prior to us accepting them. So they can go out and they can shoot, whether it's their family's event or a friend's event, or go to like a public like city event that's happening. Because the one thing that we definitely are learning is that it's hard to sometimes gauge how somebody's going to capture an event. And that's very different than capturing your food when you go to sit at a restaurant. You need to be able to have the personality. And that doesn't mean you have to be an extroverted person, but you can't be a shy person and you can't be reserved. Like, you have to be able to get into the action, because that is where the best content actually comes from. So, and then the last thing I'll just say on what we've learned about our best performing Shutterbees is that they're coachable, that they're open to feedback, that they want feedback, that they appreciate the feedback. It's the Shutterbees who shy away from it that I find don't succeed as much on the platform, because they're just not willing to learn, and we have a lot of education to give them.
Makes sense. So obviously, you've been doing this for some time, even though you're still pretty new, but I'm always curious about this. If you could go back in time to before you got started, what is the biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
That is a very good question. What is the biggest advice that I wish I knew? I think that, okay, so I am only like, it'll be 2 years this March since I left my corporate cushy salary job, right? And I launched Shutterbee September after that. I worked in advertising for 16 years, and it's a really stressful, high anxiety world. And I definitely had to find what I always called my Zen of like, how do I handle this kind of work, right? And when I shifted into entrepreneurship, I think I just assumed that I would just be able to like fly into it and go. And so that wasn't the case. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of questioning yourself. What am I doing? Is this making sense? Is this working? There's a lot of beating yourself up. And especially in your first year, when you're not used to the patterns of your business, because you don't know when there's a lull in business, you are not realizing that that is just going to be a pattern of your business. So for example, December, January for events is very slow. So we are like super quiet. It's actually just starting to pick up this week, but we've been really quiet since like mid-December till this week. And last year, in my first year, it sent me into like a very deep depression. And I'm not somebody who has typically dealt with mental health issues. And so 2024 was a very big year of laying out a mindset foundation, working with cognitive behavioral therapy. And so to your question of what do I wish I knew going into it, I think just knowing that that was going to be part of the journey and that I was going to not only have to focus on my business, but also equally focus on my mindset to strengthen myself to be able to handle the ups and downs of entrepreneurship.
Understood. Yeah. I think, there's no training manual for being a founder. It's really a lot of it, just to your point, you have to go through it, figure it out on your own. And a lot of times, everybody's experience is different. So, you have to kind of just go through that.
Yeah. And I think also, I guess so that was on like the mental health, but then on the founder side and entrepreneur side, the importance of focus. So when you have a job, it is this is your job, this is your task, you are accountable to somebody, you need to get it done. When you are an entrepreneur, your days are up to you and how you spend them, right? Exactly. And I think there is this like thing where you like are like, oh my God, all of a sudden I'm not answering to somebody. This is amazing. I can take all the coffees I want and I can go and collab on this side thing and I can do all the things. The issue with that becomes as a founder is you get distracted. And so anyone out there that is about to go into entrepreneurship, has just started, I can't stress enough the importance of focus, especially when things start getting hard in your business, because as soon as things start getting hard, all of a sudden you're a visionary, right? You're starting to come up with new thoughts on like, oh, I could take the business this way. I could start this thing. I can do that, because the most exciting part of your business is or at least for me, is being creative and coming up with the ideas. But then when it comes to like scaling your business, that's really hard and not really the fun part for all people, right? So I actually last year, at the beginning of the year, started doing that. I went down this like whole rabbit hole of creating this whole other like part of Shutterbee. And at one point, one of my co-founders was like, you have to stop because you have to scale what we've created. We have to start there. And so I think just the idea of focus is so important. And that is definitely, I think, a lesson that I would have appreciated before going in. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's great advice. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you or wanted to Shutterbee, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you or to find Shutterbee?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say if you're in Toronto, you could book Shutterbee through shutterbee.co. We are currently only servicing Toronto, but ideally we will be in one of your markets very soon. And if you're just curious and want to connect and chat with me, I would say LinkedIn is probably the best place. So Dory Adams, I think there is like randomly another Dory Adams out there, which is wild because my name is pretty unique. So I think I'm Dory Adams 1. But anyway, I'm sure Dan can throw my LinkedIn in the show notes and you can find me that way.
Yeah, and it's Shutter and the letter B.co, correct?
Shutterbee.co. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dory, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dan. This was really nice. So great to meet you.